Oh, hello, I'm Sip Mendes. Welcome to Sip's Wood Chips. I was just reaching for a Scratch Awl, and I've got several different kinds. This one has a good metal shaft on it, but it has a plastic handle. I prefer this type that has a good strong metal piece, has a copper ferrule, and has a nice wood handle. This fits my hand a lot better and can hold it more securely. This one, the handle's a little bit too small for my hand, and I don't like the grip on it. So, before you start any project, make sure you read, understand, follow all the instructions that come with your power tools and equipment. Woodworking is fun, but it's important to work safely. So I'm going to start with this Scratch Awl here. And this one has a high impact plastic handle. And it has a good piece of steel, and that's what I want. I'm going to go ahead and cut this apart and remove the plastic from the handle. And I want to make a new wooden handle for it. And I want it to be more circular. So it's going to be kind of like a ball and a small ball. And those two will be kind of joined together. And then it's going to have a place for a ferrule. That's one of these. And then I'm going to replace the awl steel part here, and it'll be pointed. So that's what mine is going to look like. And I want a nice big piece of wood. And I'm going to use this piece of Arizona ash. And it's nice and solid. I'll probably use this little copper ferrule that I made. I made that from a copper coupling. And I'm going to use this plastic Scratch Awl. I'm going to go ahead and cut off the handle and just have the spike, and I'll turn that over on the wood lathe. So I went ahead, I cut off the top of the Scratch Awl, and then I'm going to take my hacksaw and I'm going to cut right beside the shaft. I want the teeth of the hacksaw to just barely scrape that shaft. That'll allow me to easily pull it off there. So this one's being difficult, so I'm just going to cut another piece off here. And then get it to a piece. So I cut two pieces off. That means this thing should be pretty thin now. And there it goes. So this will be the shaft for my Scratch Awl. And it's made of good hard metal. I can sharpen it and should work just fine. I have a copper coupling here, 1/2 inch copper coupling, and I'm going to cut it in half. And I've put it over a piece of a wood dowel, and just using a hacksaw, I'm going to go ahead and cut that in half. And so I cut it a little bit, rotated maybe a 1/4 of a turn, And then following the same line, just eyeballing it, I'm going to keep cutting it down the center. And the idea here is to keep rocking the hacksaw back and forth and slowly tip it lower and lower, and that way it cuts in a straight line. And I've got to cut all the way down to the wood before I rotate it. But there's my little ferrule, and I'll just run that across it with a file and square it up and get rid of any burrs. So I'll just take my ferrule and run it across my file a little bit. That'll get rid of the burrs. And then square it up. Here's the other one. Might as well get them both done now. You can see how it flattens it. You can also run the inside across the edge of the file. That'll get rid of any burrs on the inside of it. So we're going to spin that at 500, and that should be fine. Put my face shield on, and I'll use this spindle gouge here to rough it. I'm going to move it up, see how fast I can go here. 850? Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so it's always a good idea to inspect your timber, and this one doesn't have any obvious cracks or flaws in it. I'm going to start with a 1/2 inch spindle gouge. So I'm going to use a 1/8 parting tool, and this will be the end of it here. Because this is safety week, so I'm going to take off my ring just as a safety precaution. So this will be the round part. The smaller ball will be about here, and then the tenon for the ferrule will be about there. So I'm going to part this off, and I don't need that wood. So I want this ball shape, but it needs to be more like a teardrop to go down to the smaller one. And this doesn't have to be very large. 1.5 would be plenty. About 35 millimeters. So the tenon for my coupling is only 1/2 inch. It's about 12 millimeters. So I need to go ahead and start sizing this down. Okay, so I have a long way to go on that. And my ferrule is a little shorter than that. That's okay. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. So, size that ferrule down. Rub a ring on it. Looks like it needs to go down quite a bit. That looks like it's going to be a nice snug fit. So let me go ahead and finish shaping this. So this needs to be a lot smaller, and this it's almost about the right size. so I think I want to leave a little bit of a shoulder there for the ferrule to fit against. So I'm going to reduce the size of all this back here so I can get around to the back of it. So I'm going to take my skew and just smooth it out a little. So I'm going to run my half round a little bit to clean out the coves. And so I'm going to sand it with a little piece of 150, and I'll probably have to chill out the camera a little bit because I get too much sawdust in the lens. I've sanded the handle with 150 and 220, and so I'm going to give it a coat of sanding sealer. It's lacquer base. I like using it because it dries quickly and leaves a nice, good, hard surface. Makes the rest of the sanding go so much easier. Let that soak in for about a minute, and then I'll wipe off the excess. I gave my handle a coat of sanding sealer. While that dries, I'm going to go ahead and drill the hole for my tip. And I'm going to drill it at least an inch deep because I want these to be totally hidden. And I'm spinning at 500 RPMs. Be right about where this sawdust is. Yeah, it should be plenty. And I can go ahead and knock my ferrule on. Now, one of the tricks I've always found out for getting a nice clean edge is that the one I sawed is probably crooked and wavy, while the factory one is straight. So I always put the cut edge against the tool. Okay, then I can just tap it on there with a little mallet. Another little trick is you take a brand new coupling, place it over the one you're driving, and that'll allow you to drive it the rest of the way. And that'll give you a nice, good seat. And with a little piece of steel wool, you can get a nice satin finish on it. That looks pretty good. It's got a few little marks there, but that's okay. Well, that should be fine. Okay. I'm going to give it a coat of rub-on varnish. And I just need a few drops of it. And I'll go ahead and put some varnish on the coupling too. Let that soak in for about a minute, and then I'll wipe it off. And if you put it on thin coats, it'll dry enough in about 30 minutes to give it another coat. So I've been letting this dry for a couple of hours. I went ahead and had some lunch. So I've been letting this dry, and you can see it really brought out the colors and the rings. I'm going to go ahead and part this off. Too bad. At least I didn't drop it. Okay, here's a little piece of oak. Looks like oak. And I'm going to drive it into the side grain. We'll see what happens here. And actually, that worked pretty good. All the little splines are gone. The ring is good and tight. I'm going to go ahead and sand that up and finish it up. To finish sanding this end, I went ahead and drilled a hole in that chunk of wood that was left over, and drilled it the same hole as the awl. And now I can just go ahead and spin that. Here's my finished Scratch Awl. It's been sanded, and it's had several coats of polyurethane clear varnish, and it's had allowed time to dry. If you've enjoyed this video, click on like. If you're not a subscriber, click on subscribe. If you're not a member of YouTube, sign up for an account. It's quick, it's easy. You can leave comments, ask questions, get answers.